everyone, and welcome back to the park. Today we have a bit of an odd video. I'm missing some chunks of it from issues streaming, because I did stream the entirety of this before actually making it into a video, and I didn't want to tax the computer by running extra software, so I just used the same video as the stream for recording as well. Which means that I did lose the sketch and line art stage for the background. And also that there is this very large overlay over everything. I have adjusted it so it is less obnoxious. And if I do something similar to this in the future, it will be significantly less obtrusive. But for this particular video, it is what it is. Anyways, so I actually started this for pretty much just messing around for some stream tests, and somehow went from let's do like a generic winter scene with snowmen because it's seasonal to this. So I'm not sure how exactly I got from snow and Christmas trees to a coral reef, but we got there somehow. They're both water-based, so that's something. It took a while to actually figure out what I wanted to do with the weird little plant things in the background. I wanted them to be a little bit more tuned out, and then after I got them there, and then after the flats went in, I ended up doing, I think there's a gradient layer, and then there's some targeted airbrushing, both in hard light to kind of get rid of all the bright colors and make it like blue. It's just yeah, I spent all that time picking these really nice bright colors and making sure they work together, and then I just covered them up. But that's just how it is sometimes, But yeah, that's pretty much the background. And then I got into the fun part, which was putting in just a bunch of tiny little mermaids everywhere. Because when left to my own devices, I'm going to draw mermaids probably about 25% of the time, if I'm being honest, maybe more. I'm left to my own devices, I draw mermaids, starfire, and magical girls. That's what I default to. Probably in that order, too. I also like how it's category of art, specific character, because I love her so much. And then just back to category, and I'm right. That's how you know it's one of my sketchbooks. I'm hey Jenna, why are there 3 pictures? Why are there 3 pages just full of starfire and various designs, just completely unrelated to each other, just spread out through this sketchbook? There's only 20 pages, and I'm I love her. But yeah, so put some sketching little mermaids, and then gradually added some little friends into there with them. I started out with this one upside down because, it's water, so it doesn't really matter positioning wise. And that changes a bit. Just kind of had fun, just kind of putting things everywhere. Initially, there was going to be more of a focus to the piece. It was going to focus on this brain coral in the foreground with a mermaid on it, obviously, because there's mermaids everywhere in here. But I didn't like how much space it took up in the composition, so I took it out in a bit. And here is the final sketch layer, which is when I changed a few more things. She stayed pretty much the same, but these 2 ended up as jellyfish, because jellyfish are my second favorite ocean, I guess, creature. I was going to say, yeah, ocean creature makes sense. The first one is sharks. I really, really love sharks, because sharks are great. Sharks are friends because you shouldn't be in the ocean anyways. It's their, like, anyway. Which I think is why, like, I've drawn a lot of sharks, so when I draw fish, I kind of like default to a shark shape, so there's kind of like these tiny little sharks around some of them. But yeah, I was going kind of like going for like, you know, old animation where there's like the cell animation where there's like a very distinct background and then the foreground elements are layered on different, you know, pieces of acetate. So there's distinct lines that kind of differentiate anything that's going to move compared to everything else. I was kind of going for a similar feel in this. After I figured out which brush I wanted to use, I think I ended up just going with the default textured brush to match the background, honestly. I wanted to keep it a little simple this time. I did all of the inking in black, and then I went through and changed the line art later. It's going to end up a really bright orange fairly quickly. It was just easier to ink it in the black just so it had a very high contract. Contract? Would you like to make a contract? Like, no. Fight entropy. No. But very high contrast with the background because some of them are going behind background elements and they are not separate layers. Let's put it that way. So that way I could erase and kind of make them line up a little bit better and see where they were overlapping. Yes, and here is our lovely friend who is technically still in the piece in that she is on a separate layer and all of her layers are completely muted and also she didn't get colored in. She also lost, but it's okay, she's not alone. She has two fish friends with her. So she's fine. I also had some fun just putting in like random details. Like I have three parts of this piece that I really, really like. I like this mermaid in the bottom who's just kind of swimming through. I don't know why, just something about her is just so peaceful and I just like it a lot. Yeah, then we are going orange with the line art. And then started to fill in everything with like this gray just because it was easier to lay the flats in. Just take that layer and keep the opacity at exactly what it needs to be, and then suddenly way easier. First I was just using the fill bucket, and then I realized that it was because of the size of this and how small most of the mermaids are, it was actually easier just going with the marker. And then around the edges where it overlapped, just kind of alternated between filling and erasing till it looked about right. But yeah, favorite parts of the piece, I like that mermaid in the bottom. I like the mermaid it just filled in there, just kind of hanging, looking down. And I like the little tiny turtle next to her. Just something about the tiniest little turtle just makes me very happy. But yeah, that was pretty much the process on this. The thought process on this was non-existent. I was pretty much making it up as I went along. Originally they were going to be like normal size mermaids, but then I realized that it would be really fun to just fill it with like tiny mermaids. Yeah, and I didn't like the composition with her in it, so she got sent to another layer and then her layer was hidden from sight and never seen again. And then I got to go in with the fun part and actually color them. I wanted to keep it still high contrast, but like really bright, because you know it is like a coral reef, and coral reefs are very bright, and the fish in them are also very bright, which is, you know, for safety reasons. There's actually a few of them that got colored a few different ways. Basically, I had a few color variation, color schemes? Color schemes is the word I'm looking for. Yep, that's what I want. My gosh, I messed it up. Anyways, and because I wanted to repeat them a few times to make it a little bit more cohesive, which I felt was necessary with the with all the mermaids just kind of laying around there, because they do have such a high contrast with the background, they needed to be harmonious with each other. If that makes any sense. I don't know if it does. But that was kind of my thought process on that. So a few of them got colored like a few different ways. This one, in like looking over the coral, kind of reminds me of Undine, which I think is just the blue fish. We have a little friend up there, just chilling with the little fishy friends. And just kind of wandered around and picked colors from off of them to fill in with the fish, to keep the fish in line with that. And then went in to shade, and I went with a really blue on this because I wanted it, because I wasn't necessarily looking for shadow, but for like the feeling of being underwater, so like a more of a blue tinge around the edges and various other parts. And that worked really well on all of them except for the purple and the dark blue, because the blue that I was using for shading on the rest of them on a hard light layer over the darker colors actually looked like a highlight because it was a lighter shade. The value was light enough. Here we are, me being annoyed because I could not find the delete button on this keyboard, which is, whatever. And then adding in basically just more highlights. So we have a glow dodge layer, and then trying to get the effect at the top of the water, which just took a while to get where I wanted it to go. There's going to be a pause in a minute. I actually went and looked at some reference stuff because I was like, I don't like this, but I cannot articulate why. So I tried to make it work for a while on this part, and I did not like it. So we tried again, didn't like that. I believe here is when I went to look at reference, and I was like, I don't know why it's not working. Why isn't it working? I know this is wrong, but I can't articulate. So went in with a blue and a white on the glow dodge, and then just so much motion blur. And a little tiny bit of warping on there. A little tiny bit of warping that I spent a good 10 minutes on. But in the end, really liked how that turned out. And then I went with the airbrush on another glow dodge layer. Actually, they might have just been color dodge. So we have the light beams with the more motion blur, because motion blur is amazing for lighting effects, especially if you're lazy like I am. And then went through and added some shadow to the background because I just didn't like how flat it was. So took a nice lovely blue and went through kind of randomly everywhere. Like, I could have done really well and like rendered everything nicely, and I was just like, no. So it went in with the blue and then had a really light blue to add the highlights, because again, it's underwater, so everything should be blue to an extent, right? That's how that works. And then I kind of wanted to make like the brain coral like really blurry because it's a foreground element. I wanted to focus more on everything else, which would have been fine, but I put a mermaid on it, so the blurry is there, but it's not as much. Yeah, and then here is the finished piece. Thanks for visiting, and I hope y'all have a wonderful day. Oops, that's not how I turn off my recording.